This isn't just another ghost story. It's the tale of a killer who haunted the streets of Victorian London and the minds of generations after.
Police are investigating the discovery of a woman's body.
28-year-old Wilma McCann.
Jack the Ripper wasn't caught. He was never even named until now. In 2025, a shocking claim burst into the headlines. Historians and scientists say they've cracked the code.
Jack the Ripper, the mysterious serial killer whose identity has long remained a mystery.
That is.
Until now.
They've named a man, dug up his past, and pointed to a clue locked in time for over a century. But is it finally over? Or are we just rewriting history with wishful thinking? Step into the fog of Whitechapel and see for yourself if Jack the Ripper has been unmasked. The autumn that turned blood red. The year was 1888. The air in East London smelled of coal, gin, and something far more sinister. In Whitechapel, a cramped district drowning in poverty, 5 women were murdered with terrifying precision. Their names, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly, are now engraved in history as the canonical 5. But back then, they were just women trying to survive. Each killing was brutal. These weren't messy stabs in a drunken rage. Throats were sliced clean, organs removed, bodies left arranged in eerie stillness. Whoever did this knew what he was doing. Some believed he had medical training. Others thought he was a butcher, or maybe something far worse. The press gave him a name, Jack the Ripper, after strange, taunting letters began arriving at police stations. One even came with half a human kidney. Panic spread like wildfire. The city demanded answers, but the killer remained invisible. No witnesses, no solid clues, just flickering gaslights, bloodied cobblestones, and fear. It wasn't just the murders, it was the silence that followed. After November, the Ripper seemed to vanish, leaving behind a mystery that refused to die. Over the years, theories bloomed like weeds. Everyone had a suspect, but no one had proof, until, some say, now. A ghost among crowds. Imagine walking through the foggy streets of Whitechapel in 1888. Desperate faces, the sound of horse-drawn carts, and the occasional cry from a nearby pub surround you. Jack the Ripper was somewhere in that crowd, maybe brushing past you. He wasn't a monster hiding in shadows. He was someone real, someone ordinary. That's what makes the mystery so chilling. The killer didn't leave dramatic traces, no bloody footprints, no hasty getaway. He walked calmly through the same streets as everyone else, then vanished after each murder. That calmness suggested confidence, perhaps even familiarity with the area. The police had theories, but not enough to act. Sketches based on shaky witness accounts showed a man with a mustache and top hat, but those images were everywhere in London. The Ripper could be your neighbor, barber, or the man selling bread on the corner. That idea terrified people more than any horror story ever could. And when the murders suddenly stopped, that silence wasn't comforting. It was deafening. The absence of more deaths didn't feel like safety. It felt like unfinished business. No one knew if he'd died, moved away, or simply changed his methods. All they had were names carved into gravestones and questions left unanswered. That silence has echoed for over a century until 2025 broke it. The Barber in the Shadows. Aaron Kosminski's name is buried deep in police records and asylum files. He is not a killer in the headlines, not even an arrest. He is just another face in the fog. Born in 1865 in Poland, he came to London with his family in the early 1880s. Like many Jewish immigrants, they fled persecution and settled in the crowded East End. Kosminski worked as a barber, nothing unusual. He cut hair, shaved faces, and lived in the heart of Whitechapel. But behind that quiet trade, there were darker whispers. In 1891, he was institutionalized after threatening his sister with a knife. He spoke of voices, refused to eat, and stopped bathing. Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. His asylum records describe someone unstable, volatile, and dangerous. Doctors wrote of homicidal tendencies and religious delusions. Even before his commitment, police had noticed him. Some believed he was a threat, but there was no proof, just rumors and suspicion. Now, in 2025, Aaron Kosminski is the center of attention. The man historians say could be Jack the Ripper. It's not just his location or his mental state. It's a growing belief that this quiet, troubled barber might have walked out each night with something more than scissors in his pocket. But what finally pulled him from the shadows wasn't a witness. It was a piece of cloth, the shawl that spoke. It wasn't a new body. It wasn't a confession. It was a shawl. A silken, paisley-patterned piece of fabric, nearly 8 feet long. In 2025, this delicate cloth became the center of one of the most sensational claims in criminal history. According to Russell Edwards, the historian behind the breakthrough, this shawl was found near Catherine Eddowes' mutilated body back in 1888, the fourth Ripper victim. Edwards bought the shawl at an auction in 2007. The story said that a police officer had taken it as a grim keepsake, which had passed down through his family for over a century. Most would have dismissed it as a creepy souvenir, but Edwards had a hunch. He believed it still held secrets, maybe even the killer's. Enter Dr. Jari Louhelinen, a molecular biologist from Liverpool John Moores University. In 2014, he analyzed the shawl using advanced forensic tools, infrared scanning, high-powered microscopy, and DNA sequencing. What he found was startling. Blood from Catherine Eddowes, confirmed by traces of kidney cells, and another substance, semen, containing mitochondrial DNA. When matched, it pointed to one living descendant of Aaron Kosminski, a relic, a stain, and a name. It felt like lightning had struck the case after 137 years. But this evidence, as remarkable as it was, would soon stir up a storm of doubt. Science on trial. The shawl made headlines, but headlines don't win court cases. In forensic science, every claim must hold up under a microscope. Dr. Louhelinen's tests seemed revolutionary. He used mitochondrial DNA, passed through the maternal line, to connect the genetic material found on the shawl to a modern relative of Aaron Kosminski. That was the core of the claim, a 100% match. But here's the problem. Mitochondrial DNA isn't like a fingerprint.
The mitochondrial DNA control region is a limited information that we get from an unknown sample.
It doesn't uniquely identify one person. It links them to a family. Hundreds, maybe thousands could share the same sequence. It's excellent for ruling suspects out. But to confirm one person beyond doubt? Not so much. Critics began to circle. Why wasn't the raw data made public? Why hadn't the findings been peer-reviewed thoroughly before the press explosion? In 2024, the Journal of Forensic Sciences added an official expression of concern to the original paper, a polite way of saying, "We're not sure this holds up." Even more troubling, the original police report did not mention the shawl at the crime scene. Could it have been planted years later or contaminated during decades of storage? The more people looked, the more cracks they saw. Science had opened the door. But whether it had truly solved the case or simply created a new myth was a question nobody could answer. Doubts in the fog. Not everyone was ready to declare the case closed. Some experts were furious. Turi King, an archaeological geneticist who worked on Richard III's DNA, questioned the claim's very foundation. No official record ever mentioned the shawl. And if the police didn't document it in 1888, how could it be trusted as evidence now? Then came the issue of contamination. The shawl had passed through generations, handled, displayed, and stored in unknown conditions. Every touch could leave behind genetic traces. Walter Parson, a geneticist from Innsbruck Medical University, called the study unpublishable nonsense. His words weren't just harsh, they were damning. Historians piled on. Some pointed out that Elizabeth Stride, one of the canonical five, wasn't mutilated like the others. Could it have been a different killer? If so, even if the shawl truly linked Kosminski to Eddowes, it didn't prove he committed all 5 murders. Then there was the barber argument. While barbers back then sometimes performed basic medical procedures, Kosminski had no documented training beyond haircuts and shaves, no record of surgical skill. Was that enough to explain the precision of the Ripper's cuts? More than anything, critics feared confirmation bias. The desire to solve a mystery can blind even the most honest investigators. In chasing closure, they warned us that we might mistake coincidence for truth. In 2025, the case was louder than ever, but clarity was as far away as it had always been. As facts clashed with speculation, one thing became clear: not everyone was ready to believe. The Ripper's echo in 2025. By 2025, the conversation wasn't just happening in forensic labs and dusty archives. It was everywhere, on news channels, in podcasts, splashed across headlines, and debated by influencers and academics alike. The name Aaron Kosminski had leapt from the footnotes of history to center stage. Some saw it as long overdue justice. Others saw it as sensationalism disguised as truth. Descendants of the victims began speaking up. A relative of Catherine Eddowes told CBS News they supported reopening the investigation. For them, it wasn't about revenge. Kosminski had died over a century ago. It was about acknowledgement, closure, naming the man who shattered lives and escaped judgment. Russell Edwards, author of Jack the Ripper, The Definitive Case Closed, doubled down. He appeared on Australian talk shows, podcasts, and morning news, pushing his claim. To him, it wasn't just about one name. It was about finally ending one of history's most gruesome mysteries. Tour companies in Whitechapel adapted overnight. Guides now pointed to Kosminski's old addresses, and his photo appeared on posters. The man, once locked away in an asylum, was now part of a gruesome attraction. For some, it felt like vindication. For others, like a circus act riding on trauma. Some of Kosminski's distant relatives were even asked to weigh in. While a few agreed to speak, most declined, uncomfortable with the sudden spotlight. The past, it seemed, had come knocking again. Public interest surged, but with it, so did unease. In truth, not everyone agreed the case was closed, and not everyone thought Kosminski was alone in the shadows. Other monsters in the mist. Aaron Kosminski might be the face of the 2025 revelation, but he's not the only ghost stalking the Ripper case. Over the years, investigators have chased dozens of names, each a possible fit and vanishing into the fog. So why Kosminski? And why not the others? Take Montague John Druitt, a barrister who drowned himself in the Thames just weeks after the final Ripper killing. Some detectives thought his suicide was a confession, a desperate escape from guilt. But no physical evidence ever linked him to the crime scenes. Then there's Michael Ostrog, a career criminal and con man. He was on the police radar back then, but mostly for theft, not murder. He boasted and bragged, but it seemed more about ego than bloodlust. And finally, there's Francis Tumblety, a fake doctor from America with a violent streak and a disturbing obsession. He collected women's organs and vanished from London right as the killing stopped. Suspicious? Absolutely. Conclusive? Not even close. Auction, painters, royals, butchers, and even a famous Vuillard drifted in and out of suspicions. Suspicions grew like weeds: Masonic plots, royal cover-ups, foreign assassins. But none brought the forensic clarity that Kosminski's case now claims. Each suspect had their story, but only one has a blood-stained thread tying him to the crime, for now. A legacy, written in blood. The legacy he left behind makes Jack the Ripper more than just a historical mystery. It's not just about the murders, it's about what they revealed. Victorian London was a city of two faces. One glittered with progress, power, and empire. The other was buried in slums, hunger, and forgotten lives. The Ripper didn't just kill people, he exposed the rot beneath the surface. That's why people still care in 2025. Not just for the thrill of a cold case, but because this mystery is a mirror. It shows us how easy it is for the powerful to look away while the poor suffer. The victims, Nichols, Chapman, Stride, Eddowes, and Kelly, were all women surviving on the edge. Society barely noticed them until their deaths made headlines. And then came the obsession. The case spawned books, films, documentaries, walking tours, and DNA tests. For some, it's history. For others, it's horror entertainment. Either way, the victims became symbols, and the killer became a myth. The obsession with naming the Ripper says something too. We want to put a face to evil, a name we can say aloud. If Kosminski is that name, it closes a circle. But it also raises questions. Was he a product of his environment, of untreated mental illness, or something darker? One thing's certain, his name is no longer forgotten. His shadow now walks with the legend he may have helped create. Truth or tale? As the dust settles in 2025, the world is left with a question that refuses to die. Was Aaron Kosminski truly Jack the Ripper? Or have we simply chosen the most convenient ghost? The shawl, the DNA, the mental health records, and the proximity form a compelling puzzle. But puzzles aren't always complete. And sometimes, the missing pieces change everything. Russell Edwards believes he's cracked it. He's shouted it from rooftops, printed it in books, and backed it with lab tests. He's pushed for recognition, legal closure, and even a formal declaration. For him, the mystery is solved. But many historians, scientists, and skeptics say not so fast. The truth is, history doesn't always end with answers. Sometimes it ends with interpretations. One man's breakthrough is another's speculation. Kosminski might have been the Ripper, or he might have been a mentally ill man caught in the wrong place at the worst time. But here's what's certain. After nearly 140 years, people still care. The mystery still burns. Whether or not Kosminski is finally unmasked, the story of Jack the Ripper remains a reflection of our need to understand darkness. Because sometimes, the hunt for truth is as haunting as the crimes themselves. In the end, Jack the Ripper remains more than a name. He's a legend stitched into the darkest fabric of history. Whether Aaron Kosminski was the man behind the blade or just another figure swallowed by time, the story endures because it speaks to something deeper. A fear of the unknown, a longing for justice, a fascination with evil that hides in plain sight. The 2025 revelations may bring us closer, but the Ripper still walks in the flicker of gaslight and the silence of old streets. And maybe, just maybe, that's the scariest truth of all.